Hi everyone, I'm Emily, and together with Ethan, we'll be presenting our leadership profile analysis on Angela Ahrendts. We'll look at how her leadership aligns with key theories from Northaus. Angela Ahrendts grew up in Indiana and studied merchandising and marketing at Ball State University. From early on, she was shaped by strong values like humility and hard work, and those really influenced how she leads. Throughout her career, she became known for transforming major companies like Burberry and Apple. But really, what really sets her apart wasn't just business strategies, but it was her focus on people and innovation. Ahrendts is all about empowering her teams, encouraging inclusivity, and creating environments where people and ideas can thrive. She believes in fostering a sense of ownership and collaboration, which helped her teams push boundaries and drive results. She's also been recognized globally and ranked by Forbes as one of the most powerful women in the world. And her leadership stands out for its authenticity, resilience, and clear sense of purpose. Taking a look at her career highlights, first starting as CEO of Burberry, when she joined Burberry, the brand was going through a tough time. It had lost a lot of its luxury image and was dealing with things like brand confusion and also a flood of counterfeits in the market. So she stepped in with a clear vision, and that vision was to reconnect Burberry with its heritage while also modernizing it. One of her big moves was buying back the brand license that was scattered across different regions, and this helped bring consistency to the company's image and give them a tighter control of global operations. She also embraced the digital world before a lot of other luxury brands did. She blended tradition with innovation, and she used social media and invested in e-commerce to reach younger, tech-savvy customers. Under her leadership, Burberry's value more than tripled, from 2,000 billion to over 7 billion. After Burberry, she made a shift into tech, becoming Apple's Senior Vice President of Retail. Her job was to elevate the in-store experience, and she brought a luxury retail mindset to one of the most iconic tech brands in the world. One of her biggest accomplishments was combining Apple's physical stores with its online presence. Before her, those two sides were pretty separate, but she helped create a seamless experience where everything felt connected, no matter how or where you interacted with the brand. She also launched Today at Apple, which turned Apple stores into community spaces, offering workshops in photography, music, and coding. And it was more about just selling the products, but also enriching people's lives and building relationships in the company. She even redesigned the stores themselves to feel more open and welcoming, more like gathering spaces than traditional retail environments. She also focused a lot on the human experience and helped Apple rethink what retail could really mean. While analyzing her leadership style, we found that it reflects four key theories from Northaus. First, path goal theory. Second, leader-member exchange. Third, transformational leadership. And fourth, authentic leadership. In the next few slides, we'll walk through how each of these showed up in her work and how she adjusted her style to fit each company's culture and needs. When thinking about path goal theory, we see that it's how leaders guide their teams by showing a clear direction, removing barriers, and offering the support people need to reach their goal. Angela really brought this to life both at Burberry and Apple. At Burberry, the brand was struggling. It had lost its luxury appeal and direction. So she stepped in with a clear and a strong vision, bring the brand back to its heritage while embracing digital innovation. She made it easy for the team to see what success would look like, which is exactly what path goal theory calls clarifying the path. Because the team needed structure, she used a directive style, setting clear expectations, centralizing operations, and guiding the brand's transformation step by step. Later at Apple, she took a different approach. The team there didn't need direction as much as they needed support and inspiration. So she shifted into a more supportive, leadership style, encouraging creativity and focusing on people. An example of that is today at Apple, where the stores became places for learning, connection, and community. In both roles, she backed her teams with resources, recognition, and growth opportunities. Whether it was mentorship at Burberry or hands-on workshops at Apple, she made sure that employees had tools to grow and feel connected to the company's bigger purpose. And most importantly, she also adapted leadership depending on what her teams needed. And that's a core part that we learned of Pathfinder theory. So that flexibility that she had is what made her leadership so effective.
Hello, and thank you, Emily. I will take over the second half of this presentation where I will be discussing at first the Leader Member Exchange Theory, or LMX leadership theory. So basically, this theory focuses on how leaders create strong, trust-based relationships with their team members through open communication, support, and collaboration. And we learned all about that through Northhouse. So basically, Angela put this into practice clearly at both Apple and Burberry by building what Northhouse would describe as high-quality exchanges, which are basically relationships with employees and customers that are based on trust, respect, and also shared goals. So at Burberry, when she first took over, she noticed, funny enough, that not even her own executives were wearing Burberry clothing, which was a real... Hello, and thank you, Emily. I will take over the second half of this presentation where I will be discussing at first the Leader Member Exchange Theory, or LMX leadership theory. So basically, this theory focuses on how leaders create strong, trust-based relationships with their team members through open communication, support, and collaboration. And we learned all about that through Northhouse. So basically, Angela put this into practice clearly at both Apple and Burberry by building what Northhouse would describe as high-quality exchanges, which are basically relationships with employees and customers that are based on trust, respect, and also shared goals. So at Burberry, when she first took over, she noticed, funny enough, that not even her own executives were wearing Burberry clothing, which was a real sign that the brand had completely lost pride internally. And a big thing that we saw in our research was that she tried to match up internal brand and external brand, and it should really run true throughout both and be one unified vision. So she worked really hard, which we'll talk about ad nauseum, of bringing those two things together. So she immediately communicated a clear and inspiring vision to this regard. To restore Burberry's luxury identity, she focused on core products like the trench coat and embracing digital innovation. She really also centralized design under one creative director, and their name was Christopher Bailey, but made sure that the entire team understood the reasons behind these changes, which aligned everyone around a shared future. So this level of open communication and inclusion in key decisions is a very classic example of what Northhouse says builds trust in these LMX leadership relationships. And another example of this is at Apple, where she continued this focus and transparency. She really led a major shift by integrating Apple's physical and digital retail operations, which is a huge change for a company that had traditionally relied very heavily on in-person sales. She communicated very clearly with employees about how this online innovation she was integrating would complement and augment and definitely not replace the physical stores and their boots on the ground jobs. So by explaining this why behind the strategy and making employees really feel part of the change, she earned their trust during a very potentially disruptive time. And she also really took people she saw a lot of silos forming at both Burberry and Apple, and she broke down those silos and defractured these teams internally, bringing them together. Another thing that I'll talk about quickly is today at Apple, which wasn't just a customer event. It really also spoke to employee development. So employees could learn new skills like coding, photography, music production, and building their own creativity, deepening their connection to Apple's mission of enriching lives through technology. So again, like I mentioned before, it's all about having the vision, the core of the company, the core values run through very strongly through both internal and external channels. And so through these initiatives like Today at Apple, employees were encouraged to collaborate, like I said, across silos, breaking these silos down. And Northhouse points out that collaboration really strengthens these high quality LMX relationships. And Angela used it very intentionally to build a very unified culture at both companies where there wasn't one before. Next, I'm going to talk about transformational leadership, which is one of my favorite leadership theories that we've learned. And that is basically when leaders create change by raising the level of motivation, morality, and also performance of the followers, or in this case, the employees at Burberry and Apple. And that comes straight from Northhouse. So Angela demonstrated this kind of leadership theory by combining all four key components of it, which is articulating a clear vision, modeling integrity, inspiring followers, and also encouraging innovation by developing the individuals. And we already spoke a little bit about this in the last slide. But first, she provided a very strong and inspiring vision. At Burberry, she articulated a future where the brand would reclaim its heritage, luxury identity, while embracing this new digital innovation that she was bringing in, focusing on the iconic trench coat again, like I mentioned before, and reaching a younger audience through these online platforms. So revitalizing it and bringing it into the digital age, but focusing on these core values. At Apple, she brought a similar vision of blending the physical and digital worlds, so creating a seamless customer journey by turning retail spaces into hubs of creativity and also community, which is really apparent. When you're in a mall, you walk past an Apple store, you see these long bench service tables with everyone walking around, mulling around. It looks like a community coming together. And she was part of that key transformation, both through thought, but also through these physical spaces. She also demonstrated idealized influence, acting as a role model and earning trust through ethical and emotional intelligence and mission-driven leadership. At Burberry, she made very difficult but necessary decisions like centralizing creative control, like we talked about last slide, but even if it meant closing factories, she made those hard decisions. But since she stayed committed to the brand's future, showing moral courage, explaining her decisions, and it worked. She was consistent with her values, so the employees trusted her because of this. And at Apple, for example, she really respected her employees' contributions while integrating the physical and online teams. So basically, strengthening loyalty during a time of major change that could have fractured the company. And also at Burberry, she encouraged innovation through digital marketing. So she pioneered live streamed fashion shows, which was really interesting. And it made Burberry one of the first luxury brands to master this online engagement, which is really important for them. In Apple, she framed her employees' work around really enriching lives, not just selling the products, but motivating employees to connect emotionally with the customers and their work as well. So finally, she demonstrated individualized consideration by supporting employees' growth, which we've talked about last slide as well. But at Burberry, which we haven't talked about yet, she launched leadership development mentorship programs. So it basically empowered employees to take on larger roles and grow as Burberry grew internationally. And again, there's the whole Today at Apple initiative. So Angela really created a real world example of transformational leadership where she combined vision, moral example, inspiration, creativity, and development. And that's really exactly as Northhouse defines it. Next, I will quickly talk about authentic leadership. And as Northhouse explains it, it's all about leading with honesty, self-awareness, and emotional intelligence, also strong moral values, and a focus on building genuine trust with followers. And I won't go into too much detail here because some of it is repetitive from the last two slides, but basically, Angela consistently led with empathy, and that was very apparent through our research. Also transparency, and always staying with a strong focus on core values of both Burberry and Apple. So again, speaking of things that we've touched on before. So basically, she believed that leadership was about creating emotional connections with both her employees, but also the customers, leading her employees to create these emotional connections with the customers as well. And that was very apparent, especially at Apple. So Northhouse says that authentic leaders have very strong self-awareness, as I just mentioned. So that's basically knowing who they are and leading from that foundation. And as an example, that's really exactly what Angela did. she practiced relational transparency through open and honest communication. At Burberry, she was transparent about the brand's challenges and the hard choices that needed to rebuild it. And at Apple, she communicated openly about the shift towards integrating online and physical retail, like I discussed about in the first slide I covered about LMX, and also, helping employees understand not just the change in self, but the why, again, like we mentioned before. So authentic leaders, according to Northhouse, weigh information objectively rather than making impulsive decisions, and she really modeled this consistently across both companies. She really led with internalized moral perspective, constantly aligning her decisions with her own deep values, but also the deep values that she was trying to build at both of these organizations. So at Burberry, as an example, she refused to chase fast profits through mass licensing deals. That would have weakened the brand's luxury image that she was trying to build over time. It takes time, and she was patient in doing that. And at Apple, she focused on creating retail spaces that really enriched lives and not just maximized sales, always keeping human connection at the center of her strategies, because that was really important for brands to connect with the consumer. And she really pioneered that idea. So basically, to wrap this up, Northhouse says that authentic leaders are guided by internal values rather than external pressures, which is really true through all of the examples that we've talked about over these past few slides. And her leadership really stayed true to that principle throughout her career, and we're only talking about a few of those examples. So to wrap things up, Angel's leadership journey really showed us through our research how theory becomes real and when it's grounded in purpose and human connection. So through path goal theory, she set clear direction for her teams and adapted her style to meet their needs. Through LMX, she built relationships based on trust, listening, and support. And her transformational leadership style inspired innovation within her companies while honoring each company's history, which is really important, and showing that true vision respects the past while leading boldly into the future with the digitalization efforts that she instituted at both Apple and Burberry. Through authentic leadership, she also consistently led with deep self-awareness, which we touched on, vulnerability during difficult moments that could have fractured the company further, and a focus on serving others constantly. She reminded both Emily and I that leadership isn't about ego, control, or hierarchy at all. It's really about human connection on the ground level, purpose, and creating an environment where people can do their best work and where the internal mission is similar or exactly the same to the external mission and meeting those things together. And so basically, her career from Burberry to Apple shows that when you lead with these values and empower others, stay true to both who you are, what your goals are, and what your goals for the company are, you can really drive impactful change and also lasting impact. And we just wanted to include this last quote from her because we believe that it captures everything that we talked about best. It really shows that leadership isn't just about strategy or performance. It's about building trust and giving employees room and freedom and support to thrive and grow. Thank you.